Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. And for those that are in this time in the AEST time zone, um, well, in this part of the world in general, or just any part of the world in general, but happy Friday. Anyway, it's because it's Friday here. So for those that haven't got to Friday yet, happy Friday in advance. Yes, time travel. It is fun. Anyway, thank you all for joining this session. This is going to be a lot of fun. I know this speaker amazingly well, but before we get into that, we're going to get into that in a moment. Something we do in the Australian region is acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands that we present from. So on that note, I'd like to begin by acknowledging and paying my respects to the traditional owners on the lands which we meet today, with a special heartfelt respect and acknowledgement to the Wurundjeri people, who are the traditional owners here in Narromine, where I'm presenting from today. And for those that don't know, Narromine is a little country town in country New South Wales. So, and hello. Cool. So should we bring out our first speaker? Well, this is our only speaker for this stream. Anyway, today we're joined by a good friend and amazing technology person, just an amazing person all around, DeveloperAlly, who is going to talk through a whole bunch of stuff that she's done in tech. And I know she's got some very interesting stories to share. And then we're going to talk a little bit about blockchain, which is, well, I won't do any spoilers. We'll get to that bit in a little bit, but like I've used it previously as a developer to get around I almost mentioned the name of the company who did this, but to get around a patent in the past. So when I was CTO a while back, I was building out a real-time payments platform, and this particular company took out a patent on using a REST API server to facilitate same-day settlement of transactions. That was the wording on it. Flipped the table when the patent lawyer put that on my desk. But for me, blockchain was a way to not only decentralize part of my stack, but also allow partners to come in as part of a governance committee. So anyway, we will get into that. But without further ado, let me bring in DeveloperAlly. Hello,
Hello.
Ali.
Hey, Developer Steve. Great to
Thank
see
you all
you
for
again,
joining.
actually.
Thank you. I know it's been so long. We worked pretty close together for a while. But
We did.
yeah, thank you all for joining the session today, and well, just coming on to geek out for a bit.
Happy to be here, and cool to see some awesome peeps that we know in the chat as well. Shout out to Phil Nash and Ben Deckerai, legends of DevRel as well. Hi, Learn Cardano as well. Hi, everyone here. Yeah, great to be here, Steve.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Hello to everyone in the chat. If you have any questions, comments, face palms, emojis, whatever it's going to be, please put into one of the chats, whether you're watching on Twitch or YouTube as we go through. And yeah, it was always good to see so many amazing, well, I'm going to say old faces, but I don't mean that in an age term, but just familiar friends, familiar faces, I
Yeah,
should
careful
say.
with that term, Steve. We're not boomers yet, are we?
I don't think so. I don't even know anymore. Anyway.
I don't know. We're talking about cool tech, so we mustn't be.
Just for those that don't know, DeveloperAlly, and totally, I've got got the link across the bottom at the moment with Ali's handle in there. So hit her up on any of the socials. But DeveloperAlly is one of the developer advocates at IBM Developer. So, and so many fun toys to play with there, and I can't wait to get to that bit. But just starting off, tell us a bit about your background and like how you got into tech.
How long have you got, Steve?
We got time, it's fine.
I had a bit of a wandering path into tech, as you do know, but I will let the audience know about it as well. I actually, so when I left school, I hadn't written a line of code, still hadn't written a line of code. Left school, went and actually studied an arts degree, as you do, and I did it in Canberra as well, also as you do. In philosophy and politics, but mostly spent my time discovering the pubs of Canberra there. So didn't quite finish that one, and then ended up with a cafe for about 8 years. I was running a cafe up in gorgeous Port Macquarie, so pretty awesome there. And when I sold that, I was looking around and I'm like, well, I want a career. I want a professional career. So I went back to uni at 30, and anyone else can do this too. You're never too old to learn, I think. Yeah. And I studied engineering, and as part of that, engineering foundations that I was doing. I did a course in C++, so learning to code, obviously, because, engineering or robotics engineering that I was studying definitely relies on coding, and wrote my first C++ Hello World program, basically, and thought, oh my God, I am the queen of the internet now. So it was kind of obviously totally not true, but at the time that was kind of my aha moment. I really loved doing it, and so I took up computer science as well and studied computer science, and as part of that got involved in so many communities and events, and just saw how much innovation was happening in the space and kind of how broad it was as well. So that's how I've ended up in tech. Obviously, we can talk more about those stories and how I met you as well, actually, Developer Steve.
I was going to say, you mentioned a couple of interesting points there too. And actually, just before we do that, when you said about you learned C and you wrote your first program and you were like, top of the world. I remember doing the same thing with HTML and Marquee. For those that might remember Marquee, actually, if you
The
remember
Marquee
Marquee, put that. I still love Marquee. Like, I wish it would. There's some JavaScript libraries that bring it up.
Yeah, lots of things built on it still, I think, or a version of it now.
But yeah, one thing you said there too, which is the communities, and actually, I'm gonna sidetrack again. I do it occasionally,
Good.
but also, interesting point you made there too is you're never too old to stop learning, and I wholeheartedly subscribe to that. Like, always be learning. Just you're always tinkering with something, learning something new. But yeah, just going back to the communities part, which I always love, like big fan of communities and the fact that everyone comes to work, comes together to work on problems together, and everyone learns from it. What's
100%.
what's
There's
one of your
nothing better
favorite?
than an innovative community as well, and you really do get that in tech. Anything you kind of dive into, you'll find a community that's passionate about it or doing cool things with it, and it really keeps you going as well. I think, like, you have these new ideas, you want to try new things, and that's how we find new tech as well. Sorry, I cut off your question there. What was the?
No, that's all right. No, I totally agree. What's some of the more memorable events from that you've been in? And I know this, I kind of know the answers to a couple of these, but
your internet
what's
cut out, or was that mine? Sorry. So some of the more memorable events I think we were going down. So some of my earliest memorable events, so the ones that I did at uni specifically, and I went to uni in Wollongong, which is just south of Sydney. Amazing campus. You've got the beach, you've got the mountains. Sydney's right there if you do want to go and play around, but it's cheaper to live, so would recommend. Beautiful place. So one of my more memorable events when I first got into, I was helping with communities. I was running the Mechatronics Society for our university. I was part of the Wollongong IT Society and the Women in STEM societies there. And as part of that, we collaborated on an event called Hackathon, actually, which I think a lot of people, if they're in Australia, might remember that one a few years ago. And that was really one of the most exciting events, as I think. I was a Google ambassador at the time as well, so I was running a little stand there with all cool Google stuff as well. And there was over 300 people there. I think it might have been the biggest one in Australia that year, actually, or one of the biggest ones in Australia that year. And just the amount of people like spending 24 to 48 hours of their time in this room doing fun stuff, and I think there's some pictures floating around of us in like these blow-up fat suits. Were they? What, I'm not just sure what they're called. Not fat suits, but we look like Teletubbies. The sumo suits.
Yeah,
that's the one.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Sumo suits, and what else did we have there? So much fun stuff. But yeah, that was one of my most memorable events, I think.
I still remember the flying fish, the fish blimp things that were big.
Yes, that's right. And
yeah,
there was someone there creating an AR, or no, was it VR game as well? I think that was Brennan Hatton was there creating his VR game as well, and everyone was having a go on that. And yeah, so much cool stuff happening, and yeah, so many sponsors as well, and such a electric atmosphere, really.
Yeah, no, I always love those when we could do IRL events, and hopefully, or in real life events. Hopefully we can do soon. I'm sure we will. But yeah, the one thing I always love is just that community spirit of everyone coming together to share what they know. And you see so many businesses and opportunities even start out of those sort of things, like the networking, and I've seen whole companies form out of a hackathon before, which is always great.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
even recruiters are often there, or the smart companies. We'll see people doing cool stuff there, and you never know kind of where the job offers might come from there. I actually met you there, and about 6 or 7 years later, you rang me up with a job. So yeah, you just never know what can come out of them as well. Definitely a good way to start.
no, it's true. So what's your, obviously you're pretty close to the innovation tech code front, if you will. What's one of your predictions for like an emerging tech or an emerging tech thing? And this does partially lead into our next topic.
It does. So I won't go straight into blockchain, but there's several technologies that I think are doing some really cool things out there at the moment. And I just mentioned one as well, VR and AR. I think there's some cool applications of that, though, maybe it's not cutting edge anymore, but we're still doing some cool things in terms of training, in terms of, so not just gaming, but obviously, I think tech for good should be, tech changes our society, not just our kind of social structure and how we do things, but it also kind of changes, it should be fun. It should make our lives better in many different ways, not just, it has to have a specific social good goal or, helping with the climate change. But I think gaming, again, having fun in our lives, that's just as important as anything else is my point. But yeah, VR and AR, not so cutting edge anymore, but doing heaps of cool stuff still happening in that space. Probably a lot more VR workspaces happening at the moment, which is really funny, because my final year computer science project was actually based on a VR workspace. So maybe we should have just run a startup off that. We would have been rich by now. I joke around with some of my mates from that group. We're like, imagine if we'd kept going with that. But no.
Actually, as you know, I have spent time working out of VR before, and it does take a little bit to get used to. But I think for me, what makes it so easy to use once you've got the equipment, of course, and I think that's come a long way already with some of the new consumer headsets. But like, I can have screens anywhere in the room and any room that I want to be in. I can work out of a low Earth orbit. I can work in the Swiss Alps, like wherever I want to go.
Yeah.
But yeah,
On
it's
Mars.
whole other world. Yeah, I've done that a couple of times.
Beat Elon to it, put the flag in the ground. No, just yeah, I think that kind of concept of metaverses is happening in the blockchain space as well, which is cool. So another cool technology that's really cutting edge at the moment, but is coming a long way and is maybe further than we thought, is quantum computing, obviously. And the applications of that, and I think maybe some people have misconceptions on what quantum computing is, but quantum computing, like other tech, there's specific applications and specific use cases for it, where it's going to really shine. And one of those use cases is in untangling our DNA and untangling those organic chemistry modules that make up COVID or things like that. So that could be a really cool use. My net cut out there, or was
a little bit. I was hoping it wasn't mine.
So,
I don't think it was yours.
Apologies all. Apologies. I live in the middle of Melbourne and can't get decent internet. Anyway, another point.
No, that makes sense. And I think one thing quantum, I agree, quantum is a whole other world that's still being explored. Actually, I do have a riddle. I think you already know this particular riddle around that too.
I've got my face palm hat on, so I'm ready to go, Steve.
Which is, if Pinocchio says his nose is growing and it's not, what happens? And like the answer is, it's in a quantum state. It can be growing and not growing at the same time, which kind of sums up quantum state.
It's the new Schrodinger's cat.
It's totally the new Schrodinger's cat.
Love it.
The box can be open and closed at the same time.
For those that might not know as well, just to explain that a little bit, in quantum, in traditional computing, we have zeros and ones, and that makes up pretty much everything, which is amazing. But in quantum, you can have a 0, a 1, or anything in between. So that explains that joke, just in case for those that
Yeah,
maybe didn't know.
it's literally a whole other world. The way I always like to think of it too is it's like a ball where 0 is the exact center of the ball, and then the 1 is the outside. So you can literally have a 3-dimension, like any point in that 3-dimensional space can be an answer. Generally, a whole bunch of grouped answers, and then like an average of. But yeah, quantum is literally a whole other world. That's a whole episode on a live stream on its own.
There is, and that's what we're here for. But
obviously blockchain, I mean, it had its early origins into, I'm going to say it was heavily buzzworded, and obviously like from a technology point of view, it actually has some actual applications. It is useful. I used it a few times. It actually does have some good applications, but I mean, what is it?
Fundamentally, it's a chain of blocks with extra superpowers. No. No, so fundamentally, blockchain, it's code like anything else. So like AI, and it comes back to that point. Just before I go into a definition, it comes back to that point. It has been a buzzword. There's a lot of noise around blockchain, but basically, it's another technology. It's another technology like AI is a technology. It's another technology like IoT is another technology, and that means it has specific use cases. So what blockchain is basically a public, so there's 3 different versions of blockchain, which is private, public, and permissioned. And what most people probably know blockchain as is cryptocurrencies, and definitely that is built on blockchain. But one of the cool things about blockchain is it's a public ledger. So you can see all the transactions that happen on the chain. And what happens is someone will make a transaction. There will be a consensus mechanism that decides if this is a valid transaction, and then it gets added to the chain of blocks. And so that means that, everything's public, everyone can trust it, it's transparent, and we know that it's true. So that's one of the big factors that makes, blockchain cool. And the other one is smart contracts. So these blocks can contain contracts that can execute each time, which means that instead of waiting for, say you're selling your car, someone wants to buy it, but you need an intermediary in between to make sure that, you say you're going to sell it for this amount, that person says they're going to buy it for that amount. How do you know that that's true unless you're handing over the car and the cash at the same time? But if you're not in the same place or something like that, how do you know that's true? You're going to need an intermediary. Well, the blockchain can do that automatically. As soon as that cash hits, the next asset's released. Kind of hard in the context of a car, so maybe not the best example, but first thing that sprung to mind. But that's basically what a smart contract is. So cryptographic truth.
It does, yeah, and it does. I mean, there's a few, when you first start looking into it, when you start looking to use it, it kind of makes us redefine some of the, I'm going to say, origin story to the tech world. Like when you're talking about databases, this decentralizes a database and
sound.
Oh.
Sorry,
we need some quantum internet.
Trouble with this? Oh yeah, we do. I do. Sorry about that. Yeah,
that's okay. Yeah, I think one thing, when you start seriously looking to implement a blockchain or get involved with one, it starts to redefine some of the traditional approaches we would take to technology design. So, like databases, for example, it's a redistributed database. Like you don't often have it in the one place you would normally have it anymore. But what's some of the other points do you think to look at when like getting started or even delving into the blockchain scene more?
100%. That's definitely true. And sorry, I that is one of the best qualities about blockchain, that it is a decentralized ledger. So when you get all these transaction chains in the blocks, and I'm trying to describe this for someone that maybe isn't technology minded. So just to preface this, but yeah, when you get this ledger, basically it becomes a database. But this database is duplicated and replicated everywhere, and we're kind of seeing this in modern technology. To reduce redundancies across our systems, we're spinning up more and more kind of Kubernetes nodes or whatever it is out there in the cloud to make sure that, we've always got access to this data. Well, blockchain does this by being decentralized. So it holds a copy of this ledger in multiple different places, and people are generally incentivized to hold this ledger copy and hold it accurately with tokens. And that's why we're seeing this public token cryptocurrency economy, because there's a bunch of projects that are built up around this because money can be involved and it can be sent automatically, and we can incentivize social good, and we can incentivize people to run these nodes or to do other things, even develop things, which is another force that's coming out. So decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, are another big thing that's coming up at the moment. And I was going to have a pause there, but now that I've got onto this topic, I'm just going to keep talking. So they're one of the cool use cases that I'm seeing in the public blockchain space. And what's happening, it's really a new mental model, is instead of, in traditional startup land, you'll build a product and then you try and build a community around it. And what's happening with these decentralized authority, these DAOs, is people are starting to build communities and then decide what products to build around it. And you've already got this community that's fully backing it, or you've already got this community that wants to decide on which project deserves their attention. Say it's a community of developers, and they're all kind of operating without a central authority, but doing partnerships with other people. So there might be money coming in, and then that everyone in that DAO gets to decide what they want to do with that money, or what project they want to back with maybe the money they have, or who they should incentivize to develop things. It's just a really kind of different concept to how we're used to viewing the world, I guess, and that's maybe one of the things that is so cool about it and why I'm so excited about it, but also is why maybe people look at it and go, oh, there's nothing happening there. It's because it's such a mental shift as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And actually, I'm
Totally
just going to do no, that's fine. Actually, I do want to do a quick shout out to Pete Boy, watching the live stream as well, who does a whole bunch of stuff with the ADA community, the Cardano community locally.
Awesome.
And I think that's something I've noticed too, particularly in the last 2 years, is just the emergence of crypto and blockchain communities throughout, well, not only this region, but globally. Is now we're seeing more of that developer facing interaction, where it's like these companies, these cryptos, these coins, organizations are going to the developers saying, hey, what do you need to build something out? Like, what are you looking for in the thing? Actually, that leads me to my next question too, which is, so what are some of the use cases you've seen?
So use cases are really going to depend on the blockchain. So if we're talking about traditional tech, traditional business, and they are using blockchain, especially IBM, obviously we're one of the founders of Hyperledger. So, we've been big into blockchain for a while now, and I've watched some of those speeches of when it was formed, and some people talking about how they helped build Hyperledger. It was really cool, but anyway, I digress. But in the private blockchain space, we're doing a lot around government things, like controversially COVID passports, so we don't have to give away details of who we are to be able to prove that we're COVID vaccinated. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of the politics there, but that's one important use case, as well as verifying your identity anywhere overseas. For example, say you need to prove you're an Australian citizen somewhere overseas. We carry around this passport all the time, but what if we could just do that because it's verifiable on the blockchain on our phones or something similar to that? Don't have to worry about having copies of our passport all the time when we're traveling, or going into the embassy and not being able to prove where we say we are.
But my passport photo always looks amazing.
I mean, yeah, that's going to be an attractor. And our license photos. God, I've got some mugshots there.
Yeah.
100%. Another one is in supply chains. So obviously supply chains like food, for example, IBM has something called IBM Food Trust. And in that space, there's a lot of different growers or consumers or supermarkets or, the trucks in this supply chain. And we need to be able to verify, and this is probably a use case that's combined with IoT as well, which is another cool thing about blockchain, that you can kind of combine it with these different technologies, like most of them. But we want to ensure that this food, or the Pfizer vaccine, for example, is kept at a certain temperature along the whole way, so we can track that and verify that it has been and not make anyone sick, or things like that. So really good examples in the private space. In the public space, there's some really cool things happening as well. So a lot of it has to do with finance, obviously. Finance has become one of the big use cases because the blockchain can send funds. So instead of paying whatever crazy amount of money it is to send funds internationally, you can do this with the click of your keyboard to anyone in the world. And it's pseudo-anonymous, so you're just sending to an address rather than a cryptographic address, which is why it's called cryptocurrency. So somewhere on the digital space. So I didn't explain that well, but you can delve into that further. And another cool use case is we're seeing a lot around NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens, which means you can verify the authenticity of something and you can't copy it. We're seeing a lot of things happening for creatives in the space now. So building up whole use cases around these NFTs, or projects like Audius is like Spotify, but on blockchain. So these artists are automatically getting paid every time someone listens to their tunes, without the need for Spotify changing or telling you how much you get paid per song, or you have to be this big before you pay you a certain amount. So the community kind of can decide on what economics they're going to have around this, and the creatives get a more fair deal, really. And it's also happening in social platforms. So Twitter just announced that they're going to accept tipping with cryptocurrencies, which is pretty awesome. So I think we'll see more of that as well, being able to pay per view, for example, or not pay per view, but yeah, basically interact
more
like that.
Acknowledge someone's work, or just
exactly.
It is interesting even seeing the likes of Twitter now start to integrate it in. So I guess from the development side of things, how do you get started? Have you been using something lately that you want to talk about? Can show some code.
Yeah, sure. I can show some code for sure. So getting started, I think one of the best ways to get started is, and most people will probably have heard of Ethereum. So Ethereum isn't just something you throw money into and you hope it goes up. It's actually the reason it goes up is because it has a fundamental use case underneath it. Ethereum, starting with Ethereum development is probably what I've done, and the best way to go. And Ethereum has a contract language called Solidity. So Solidity is pretty similar, and maybe I can share my screen here and show you this.
I can switch to share screen mode.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Sweet.
So actually tooling in Ethereum and the Web3, we call it Web3 because we thought of Web1 as, the initial internet, and then we had Google and things like that as the second version of the internet. And now this is really a new way of thinking about it, and so people are calling it Web3. So for Web3 development, what am I trying to say here? So to develop in the blockchain, we can use a language called Solidity, which will create contracts for us. So for example, I've created this really basic hello world of Solidity contract. And it probably looks similar to a lot of languages you've seen before, either JavaScript, some people say, although I think it's closer to Java or C++ myself, like more object orientated. But, JavaScript, they're all quite similar after a while. So you just need to create a contract, and I'm using remix.org. And I can get onto some tutorials and things you can have a look at if you do want to go down this rabbit hole a bit further for yourself and play around with it. But basically, This is online, remix.org. So it will give you everything you need to create a contract. And all I've done here is create some variables. So a message variable. We probably don't need to know about any of these other ones. It's kind of, I was playing around with it a little bit. I've got a message here. So set message, get message, pretty much makes sense. And we'll go on to the extra functions that, because Ethereum has payability, you can also have payable functions. So you could, for example, make a user pay to set this new message. Maybe that all that money goes to a charity or something at the end. So every time someone sets a new message, it goes to a charity. I don't know. There's lots of different options, lots of different innovations happening around it. But I basically just made this Hello World contract with a message, set message, get message, and we can try it out. So I can basically, I can compile this.
Just going to point out, this is on one of the test nets, right? You're not actually using actual money.
Sorry. Yeah. So exactly. So there is test nets and main nets, they call them. So the main net of Ethereum is where I'd be using real Ethereum, and I'm not going to do that. For a demo. But obviously developers need to be able to test their contracts and make sure they're verifiable, or test their whole product even. And you can do that on a test net and have others participate in that testing as well on a test net. So let's deploy this, and I will just hit deploy here on my Hello World contract. You can see it's deployed. This is actually all in the Remix browser, so it does it automatically for me. I think it's not even on a testnet; it just runs in Remix itself. So now I can let's have a look at get message, and it's saying hello Solidity World, because that's what I set it to in the constructor, obviously. But now I can change it with this set message function. I've just set it to nothing, but so I won't do that. How about thanks for tuning in all?
Thanks for tuning in to Speak Live.
Thanks for tuning all. So miss the in, but just thanks for tuning all.
Thanks for tuning.
That one's probably for Phil. He's tuning his guitar or something. And you can see it's just changed the message automatically. Now, if I did want a tip, I would just send a value of, and this is way. So Ethereum and Bitcoin and most cryptocurrencies are broken down into a base level currencies. So much like we've got, $100 that's made up of however many cents it's made up of. It's the same in this world. It's broken down into a smaller component, which is way. And I can send a tip, I think, if I've got this here.
So the value can go, how many decimal places? That can go to a lot of decimal placements, can't it?
Yeah, so actually I was looking up the Ethereum converter. So one Ether is like 10 to the 18, I think, way.
Okay, so
you can see that.
18,
so
18 decimal places.
Look, some big number is all but exactly. Really big number of way.
Positions, yeah.
Exactly. Oh, sorry. I actually think, have I even put the tip? Yeah, tip me. Okay, so I can add a value in here. Luckily, Remix has got this all added in for me. And then I can do tip me, and I'll check how many total tips I've got. And I've got one big number of way in tips here as well. So that's basically it for the contract.
So I was just going to ask the people looking to use this the attraction is that transaction you just did is publicly available. So any other app or any other third party, or pretty much anyone that can access a browser, is able to then check that transaction and make sure that it actually happened and it's authentic.
Yeah, 100%. So I've actually deployed a contract, and I've done this using a tool suite called Truffle. You can look that up if you want
nice
to.
Name.
It's kind of cool name, isn't it? And they've got a test net on Truffle that's called Ganache as well. So just for fun. Actually, heaps of things in the public blockchain space, for some reason, are named after sweet things. I don't know where it's come from, but there's things like Sunday Swap, Pancake Swap. There's all kind of DeFi's named after sweet things.
I guess that's part of getting your just desserts for using the technology.
Hey. Nice one, Steve. So I have actually deployed a contract. So I deployed this Hello World contract, and I can look it up publicly, and so can you. And I deployed it to this Rinkeby testnet here. I mean, I could put that in the chat. You can verify it. You can have a look at this contract. You can look at any other contracts on this Rinkeby testnet as well, and have a look at all the transactions that have happened on them. So yeah, 100%. You can see what's going on. This one, I think I've self-destructed, so it doesn't exist anymore, but it was there.
It was there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a test net, so like you said, it's literally a developer sandbox. I love those because you can break stuff and you can test your code and stress test it and all that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, and it's so fun. I think that's pretty much all the demo I really had for you today.
No, that's okay.
Let's not put the environments in. So to connect this to, I've done a little connection to React, and that's this one, but I actually didn't quite get time to finish the input button, so it doesn't work. To connect. Sorry.
It's not that it doesn't. It's not that it doesn't work. It's just an undocumented feature.
Yeah, that's correct. Exactly what it is. But to connect this, I've used Truffle to connect this as well. And Truffle runs on Node. So if you've got Node on your computer and you've got VS Code on your computer, then you can become a Solidity developer, basically. So I'm testing my contracts in this little remix thing, but there's obviously, better things out there, such as Hard Hat, to test if you get full on into it. But if you just want to play around, like, just have a look at Remix and have a play around with making a contract that you can then kind of test.
Nice.
And it's pretty easy to connect it up to React, so up to the web, which then makes it a DApp, a decentralized app, right? I'm using Truffle in this. Sorry, I've made this little hello world. And sorry about the mess. I don't know if you can see this very well either. Maybe I'll zoom in a little.
That's a bit better. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, everyone. All I've done here is I've run npx create next app. So instead of creating React app, you could also do that. I'm creating a Next.js app, which is Next is just a server-side rendering front-end language. Framework. Sorry. So basically the same as React, but with some additional server-side rendering. And then I've done a Truffle init, and that's init this contracts and a Truffle config, so it knows how to deploy up to Rinkeby, basically. You can have a look at this Truffle config. I've imported a library from Node that gives me a wallet provider, and that's from Truffle as well. And then you can deploy it either to your Ganache testnet, which is what this local development one is, or what I've done is created a Morales server. So you can use Infura as well. But what I've done is gone to Morales.io, which is a company that's doing some really cool work in building developer tools to make it super easy to interact with the blockchain. They have so much there. I recommend checking them out. But I've just created a server with Morales, which was as easy as just signing up and pressing create server. It's all free at the moment, which is awesome. And I'm using that to deploy this contract up to in this case, the Coven Ethereum testnet, but my other one was on Rinkeby. So it's really as simple as that. And then I have imported another front-end library, which is called Web3, and connected the contracts to my front end. And then this is an interface. So just connecting the contract to my front end, basically. And then in my public pages, wherever it is, let's have a quick look at that. And sorry for a bit of a messy demo here. I only wrote this about an hour beforehand, and
no, that's right. I mean, I was going to make a point about that too. That's the thing I like, and what we were saying earlier, where these chains, these groups are basically producing very developer-centric tooling. So the fact that you can spin up a very quick demo in an hour, I mean, speaks volumes to that whole approach. And I'm always a big 100%. Fan of that.
And the tooling is coming further and further in blockchain. So I imagine, and I didn't start in doing this 3 years ago, but I imagine 3 or 4 years ago, would have been much harder and very limited options. But now, yeah, there's so much happening in the dev tool space for blockchain, so much interoperability as well. So I'm just deploying to CovenNet here, but the cool thing about using something like Morales is I could also deploy to Binance Chain. I could also deploy to Polygon, which is a kind of layer 2 trying to make Ethereum cheaper to run. And yeah, basically I could have this contract on multiple chains all at once with the developer tools that are coming up at the moment, which is another really cool feature. So if I just refresh this page, if you might have noticed I've kind of console logged out the interface. So console logged by contract out. And we can have a quick look at maybe what comes up under that contract. I'll just zoom in so people can see.
Yeah, thank you.
So if I have a look at this contract, you can see it's got these methods that I programmed in. So, well, there's a variable. The contract address was one of the variable. Here's the get message function. So basically, like anything you might have done before in JavaScript, you get this backend back, and here's the interface for it, right? Here's everything that I coded into this contract is here in my front end already. So I guess, is there any questions on that? I don't really know where to go with that next, but I have a few better demos up on my GitHub if anyone wants to have another look. So I've actually got one live that's a full raffle that you can enter. I don't know if it's actually working anymore because I have to keep it funded and I haven't been doing that. But yeah.
What's your GitHub is DeveloperAlly?
DeveloperAlly, yep. So you can have a look at a couple of those on my GitHub as well if you wanted to see some more. And this is actually getting price feeds in, which is kind of a cool little feature. And I'm not paying a cent for that. So companies are offering these kind of developer tools that you can get in. But yeah, you can see past winners. So basically 3 people enter the lottery and it automatically picks a winner out of that. And it's all on testnet, so it's fake money. But you can see kind of the power of what you can do here.
Well, the good thing with that in a game sense too is everything is in the open. So there's no like if you suspect there's cheating or whatever else, like you can go see the entries, you can go see the results, and it's all anonymous for the better part as well.
Exactly. So really, really good for gambling or charity things where you want to verify that the funds that you're giving out are going to the person you want them to go to. That's a really cool use case, I think. And I've got to give a shout out to Harry Pappas, who's a bit of a legend of the blockchain community. He's from Chainlink, actually, here today. So shout out, Harry. Check out some of his stuff. He's done some awesome stuff on Solidity and also on Solana recently, I think. So.
For Solidity. Harry's put some comments in the chat, and keep those comments coming in. We'd love to see those, especially the face
sorry,
palms.
I'm missing a few.
All the questions too. No, that's fine. I've been keeping an eye on it too.
Shout out to the awesome blockchain community as well, which is another super cool thing about it. Because it's growing, because it's innovating so much, there's so many cool people in it that are willing to help you out as well or point you in the right direction to find something. So.
And lots of tutorials too. Like there's always someone posting something about. I've seen you've done some events recently as well, but just people willing to share. And because fundamentally it's all open source, which is great.
Yeah, 100%. And I would recommend have a look at the Morales YouTube as well. They've got some cool tutorials up there. I know Chainlink has a heap of cool tutorials around as well. They ran a boot camp that I did not long ago, so that was awesome. Crypto Zombies, if you want to get started in learning Solidity, cryptozombies.io, super fun. You'll get into it. It basically creates an NFT zombie for you. It's a really fun way to learn. But they've actually got it's like free code camp, but a bit cooler. So you make a zombie factory basically, and it changes based on the input you put into it. I can't. Really
so it's doing like a whole staking thing where it's like creating more value, like a stake pool.
Not quite. It does go. It's kind of like free code camp in the way it goes through things. But you see here, you make something like this, and it changes based on you can have a play around with it, and it changes based on your input, and then they show it changing based on the string you put in. It's just a really fun way to learn, I think. So I definitely recommend that one if you want to learn more.
I'd say that this reminds me of CryptoKitties, but I mean, it's not even on the same level.
Yeah, it's based off CryptoKitties, exactly.
Yeah.
It's actually based
Yeah.
off CryptoKitties, and they have their zombies eat the CryptoKitties at one part of the tutorial. So yeah, good
See,
pick up there, Steve.
I've been waiting for somebody, and for those that aren't familiar with the Rick and Morty show, there was this whole movement around what's known as Pickle Rick, which is literally one of the main characters turns himself into a pickle. I was waiting for a Pickle Rick NFT. I mean, it still might be a thing. Maybe we can create it.
Someone's totally going to come out with that now that you've mentioned it on air, Steve.
Probably.
If it doesn't already exist, I haven't looked, but it might exist already.
So one blockchain like I've used in the past, and I mentioned in the opening, is Hyperledger. There's a number of branches to that one. In particular, I kind of like the Iroha branch, but I like Protobuf. So Iroha was using Protobuf to predominantly connect to a mobile device through a stateless connection. Protobuf's cool. I like it.
There you go.
But
I've
yeah,
just
there's
learned
so many.
something new, so thanks for that, Steve.
Oh, that's right. I haven't used it for a while, but and yeah, we were actually deploying it before it even went to production version, because got to live dangerously sometimes, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the way to do it. Straight to pro.
But
no,
there
kidding.
is. Oops, I think either your net dropped or my net.
Yeah,
dropped.
my
I
net
think it was
probably
yours.
dropped again.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just blame it on me. It's usually the case.
It's coming back. No, thank you for that. I guess so. The technology side's super easy now, but where are some other challenges you normally see when you see blockchain use cases come out? Like, and I'm thinking, and I've totally been here. Things like governance, for example. Well, actually, yeah, we can talk.
Well, to be honest, security is a big factor, because if you do delve into kind of, or you've looked into cryptocurrencies, or you've been involved in the blockchain, the kind of public blockchain space for a while, or even the private blockchain space, security is a major factor, because there's projects getting hacked left, right, and center. And when one of the main use cases is around money and around decentralized finance, or around keeping your tokens safe, in these kind of platforms, then security is an even bigger issue than it usually is. You want to make sure that you're building these applications the right way, and that you're securing them and you're getting them audited by blockchain auditors. And Harry from Chainlink that's here, he could probably tell you way more about the security of blockchains than I can. It's not something I've delved into that much, but yeah, it's definitely a massive factor. So
maybe we'll do a session 2 into that one, and reach out to Harry. No, I think, and like I've seen that too, and we even saw that with Ethereum not so long ago. But I think the thing I always like is how reactive everybody is to it. Like, it gets identified and nullified within, or fixed, remedied in literally hours, if not sooner. Like, I know I woke up to that Ethereum one, and it was like there was a problem, we fixed it.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very, very quick.
It really is, especially the public blockchains. They're really the ultimate open source community, because you can, help fix these things or help point out these edits. Everything's open source. So you can go and have a look at the code of any of these contracts, basically. I think, Cardano, for example, is open source. Ethereum or Chainlink, or most of these projects that are running now. I've just got a security warning message. Speaking of security, you can go and help with the code or check that it's secure, for example. So it's really the ultimate open source project, and you're incentivized to kind of do it. A lot of them are operating, or not a lot of them, but starting to operate under that DAO model that I was talking about earlier. So governance of the project is by the community, and ownership of the project is the community. So yeah, I mean, you can even get incentivized to help with these things along the way in some cases.
No, which is really also cool. Amazing. I love that part as well. So my last question, and I know it's kind of dabbled around it too, with the whole crypto thing, is when Doge up? No, I'm only joking. I'm not going to ask you that.
when Elon Musk makes it to Mars, stakes it as his own, and makes it the currency of Mars, that's when.
No, I do have a last question before we wrap up. Is any references of anything you'd like to call out, like a book you're reading, an open source project, or some fun thing, some fun tech thing?
Book I'm reading. That's interesting. I actually was listening to this talk the other day by one of the Consensus, and Consensus is a big blockchain company, one of the original blockchain companies. I was listening to a talk, and I don't know if I can bring it up, but maybe I can tweet it out later or something. And it was like, I think the book was called Governance of the Commons, and this guy was talking about it in terms of DAOs and NFTs, and the community in blockchain. So now I really want to read that. So I haven't actually read it, but I really want to read it now. And it was written way back ago. It's a big politics book, and I think that's another cool thing about blockchain. You can be from any part of life, and what you bring to the space will be valuable. You'll find a project that you can relate to. Like, you can be a creative, you can be into politics, you can be into social good, you can just be into the plain dev or security or whatever else, even AI or IoT deving. And you'll find somewhere in blockchain that's using it, which is really cool about the community too. But yeah, so that's a book I want to read. But if that kind of answers your questions, yeah, maybe other people would be interested too. Yeah.
Oh, there was no right answer to that. It was literally just something of geeky interestness. But I think that's the thing I always love the most about open source centric communities, is that whole, everyone's welcome, everyone learns together, everyone contributes, everyone inputs, and together we all grow. So, and yeah, 100%. It certainly seems like one of those type of things, which I always love.
Yeah,
so
it definitely is, especially when you get into the developer space in these public blockchains. So join their discords, and you have a question, or there's always people posting for collaborations. There's hackathons everywhere. I know there's a Solana one on, there's a Chainlink one coming up. There's hackathons everywhere that you can get involved in, and people are willing to just work with you that you don't know from across the other side of the world. That's another really, really cool thing about it. It's like, what skills do you bring? All right, let's have a go. It's really awesome.
Yeah, no, big fan of that. Amazing. Thank you for that. That was really interesting. I learned a whole bunch of new platform things today that I had not heard of before. Ganache and Hard Hat and all sorts of things that I'm going to go check out. So
bit ad hoc, but yeah, happy if anyone has any other questions to just send me a message on LinkedIn or Twitter, and yeah, happy to go through it, have a chat.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing as well. Yeah, if anyone's got any questions, want to reach out to DeveloperAlly, well, she's DeveloperAlly pretty much most places. So check her out. And also the GitHub as well, where you have some tutorials and code things that people can play with and try it themselves.
Yep, I do have a couple of cool ones that you can go through and just clone. And I'd also recommend, I think, I forget what it's called, but I know Ethereum itself has a really cool GitHub, and it walks you through it, and you can help contribute to it, and has some amazing projects on it. Best place to find that, Harry might actually know what it is, but it's by Austin Griffith, I think. It's if you look up him, Austin Griffith, his name is. He has some really amazing tutorials, and because he works with Ethereum Core. And he's a cool dude. He wears his bow tie and he's always super excited about things. But anyway, I recommend looking him up as well. And also Nader Dabit, who used to work at AWS and has moved over to public blockchain. He's doing some amazing stuff in the space as well. So check him out if you want people to follow or look at.
Harry's just asked a question, actually, saying scaffold.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yes, thank you, Harry.
Okay.
No, that's the one.
Thank you, Harry. See, together we all learn. Open source,
exactly.
Open source approach. No, thank you for that, and thank you for spending time with us today. And happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you as well. And thanks everyone for being here. It was really cool to see some of the awesome people in the chat as well, and talk to some people I haven't seen in a while as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'll just wrap up with a couple things before we close out. So thank you all for joining us for this live stream. I've got another one coming up with Vandana, one of the other senior developer advocates at Sneak. We're going to be doing a recap of SneakCon, which is next week. So SneakCon is end of next week. Some amazing talks. We have over 100 speakers from 80, yeah, I think it's 80 countries, about 80 countries, including one of my favorite people, Troy Hunt. He will be doing an amazing talk there. He co-founded, runs the Have I Been Pawned website, among many other things that he does at Microsoft. So check that out. Tickets are free. But yeah, we will be doing a recap on the 12th of October. So please join in then. We've also got another session actually that's just been scheduled for the 12th of October, Sneak Live. So my colleague Brian will be doing a session on Java for those that might be interested in the Java things. So anyway, thank you all for joining us, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you very much.